Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're going to tackle a pretty wild idea, a philosophy that basically takes everything you think you know about attraction and flips it completely upside down. And we're going to do it using the mind of Machiavelli as our guide. This should be interesting.
So here's the game plan. We're breaking this whole thing down into 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with something called the attraction paradox, then dive into the law of scarcity, the power of frame, the engine of uncertainty, and we'll wrap it all up with the freedom to leave. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the attraction paradox. This whole idea really gets to the heart of a problem a lot of us have probably felt. The source material basically says when it comes to attraction, trying harder can actually, it can totally backfire. So what's up with that? Right out of the gate, this philosophy challenges something we've all been taught. Be consistent, be reassuring, always show up. But then it asks a pretty tough question. Why is it that sometimes doing all those right things is the very thing that makes someone start to pull away?
And this really sets up the core conflict, right? You've got 2 totally different ways of looking at this. On one side, you have the common belief. Build attraction with effort, reassurance, always being present. But then on the other side, you've got this Machiavellian view, which says, nope, that's not it. It says real deep attraction is actually built on mystery, scarcity, and even the potential for loss.
This quote, man, it just nails the central idea. Desire does not grow from what is always present. Desire is born from what can be lost. Think about that. The argument here is that our brains are just wired to place more value on things we're afraid of losing. If something is guaranteed, it's easy to take it for granted, isn't it? Okay, so if this idea that the fear of loss is a powerful driver is true, then how do you actually use it? Well, that brings us right to our first major principle, the law of scarcity. This is where it gets really interesting, because it draws a line in the sand between 2 different feelings. Look, safety and predictability, of course, that's comforting. We all want that. But the source makes a bold claim. Comfort is not desire. It's not that intoxicating, can't stop thinking about you feeling.
And it builds on that perfectly. If you're always available, texting back in 2 seconds, always free, the theory is that you're actually dissolving the tension, that little bit of emotional static that attraction feeds on. But scarcity, making your time and attention something valuable, that creates a kind of emotional gravity. It pulls people in.
And this is a super important point. The source is very clear on this. This is not about playing games. It's not about waiting 3 hours to text back just for the sake of it. No, it's about a real internal shift. It's about having a genuinely full and interesting life, so your attention becomes something that has to be earned, not just handed out. It's a mindset, not a tactic.
You see how that leads right into our next point? This whole idea of internal stability, it brings us to the power of frame. And this one is all about who's really in the driver's seat of the interaction.
So they call it frame control. What does that even mean? Well, think of it like this. It's about operating from your own internal compass, your own values, instead of just reacting to whatever the other person is feeling or doing. Are you setting the emotional tone, or are you just a thermometer reacting to the temperature in the room?
And check out this contrast. It's so clear. When you're in their frame, you're constantly reacting. You chase when they get distant. You find yourself explaining everything you do. But when you're holding your own frame, you're calm, you're stable, you can handle a little ambiguity without freaking out, because your actions come from your own internal sense of direction. And here's the killer line. Dependence is the enemy of desire. The second you show that you need this to work out, that your happiness depends on them, according to this view, you've just handed over all your power. And desire? It often walks right out the door with it. Okay, let's keep going. Because this one might be the most counterintuitive part of the whole philosophy. It's called the engine of uncertainty. And it's all about how a little mystery can literally create obsession. Now hold on. Emotional uncertainty doesn't mean being a jerk or being chaotic. It's more like structured unpredictability. You're still you're consistent in your character, but you're just not an open book about every single thought and feeling. You leave these little open loops, these little questions in their mind. And the human brain, oh man, it hates open loops. It has to solve the puzzle.
So here's the path it takes, psychologically speaking. First, there's a little bit of ambiguity. Something's left unsaid. That creates an open loop. And then their mind starts working overtime trying to close it. They start replaying conversations, asking themselves questions. Basically, they're thinking about you a lot. And all that mental and emotional work they're investing, that's what creates attachment. It's fascinating, right? We get attached to what we invest our energy in.
And that's why this quote is so on point. Familiarity breeds contempt, but mystery breeds attention. The core idea is that if you lay all your cards on the table on day one, there's no puzzle to solve. There's no curiosity. And without that curiosity, it's really hard to get that deep emotional investment.
All right, this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the fifth law. And according to the source, this is the one that makes everything else we've talked about not just a tactic, but something real and lasting.
The freedom to leave. This isn't about threatening to walk away. It's not a power move you pull out in an argument. It's something you embody. It's a deep-down mindset that comes from genuine self-respect. It's knowing, truly knowing, that you will be okay. Your world will not collapse if this one thing doesn't work out.
And this quote just hits hard. What is maintained by chasing was never power to begin with. Just think about that for a second. If you constantly have to chase someone, to convince them, to negotiate for their attention, was it ever really yours to begin with? The idea here is that true attraction doesn't need to be hunted down. And again, this isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about what this mindset signals to the other person. It signals that you have high standards. It signals that you value your own peace, that you're not a captive to the outcome. Your self-worth comes from you, not from them. And that, the source argues, is what inspires respect. And respect, well, that's the foundation of desire that lasts.
So let's just wrap this all up. You have these two completely different playbooks. The common approach is all about trying to secure desire through effort and explanation. But this Machiavellian framework, it's about creating the conditions for desire to grow on its own by demonstrating strength, a little mystery, and self-possession. The end result is totally different. Attraction becomes a response to who you are, not just a reward for all the things you do.
And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? Is attraction something you have to earn with constant effort, or is it something that's demonstrated through a kind of quiet strength? The philosophy we've looked at today gives one very specific and, pretty controversial answer to that. It's definitely something to think about.